Welcome back everybody to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we're going to take a look at the popular class-based multiplayer shooter game Marvel Rivals, and see how it stacks up to its most apparent rival in this space, Overwatch 2. For this comparison, both games are being played on a PC, with the graphics settings cranked up as high as possible at a 4K resolution. For gameplay sequences, I will be making use of NVIDIA's DLSS and frame generation options when available, in order to maximize performance while maintaining the best quality possible. Though, for our close-up tactical comparisons for things like character models, objects, and the environments, I will be disabling this AI upscaling tool to avoid artifacting and other anomalies that might impact the image quality. Alright, so let's kick this comparison off by first discussing the character roster. Marvel Rivals and Overwatch both lean heavily into their hero shooter design, and are loaded with unique designs for their dozens of different choices. Each character has a very unique silhouette to make them highly distinguishable in the heat of combat, along with unique animations, attacks, and abilities. For fans of Overwatch, the similarities with these newer Marvel Rivals heroes should be obvious right away. There's several parallels that can be drawn between certain iconic Marvel heroes and beloved classic Overwatch fighters. Iron Man, for example, is designed to be a ranged DPS that can lob explosive rockets from the air. This is the same general principle as the Overwatch character Pharah, who is also equipped with thick armor plating, jetpack, and rocket launcher. However, there are still some key differences, in that Pharah can only hover in the air for a short time, whereas Iron Man can only fly, and has several more attack options at his disposal as well. Another very clear inspiration carried over into Marvel Rivals is that of Tracer, and how her quick dive and ambush attack style seems to be incorporated directly into that of the Guardian of the Galaxy's own Star-Lord. Only, instead of reversing time and dropping powerful sticky bombs on targets like Tracer, Star-Lord instead has an option to shoot in multiple directions, just like Reaper's ultimate attack, albeit with far less damage. And Star-Lord's own ultimate seems to borrow the same general concept from Soldier 76's ultimate, with a brief period of perfect accuracy, allowing him to kill off several weaker targets in quick succession. These types of similarities and minor tweaks can be found with nearly every character in Marvel Rivals, as they all seem to borrow some core attribute from Overwatch, with a slight remix to make it just different enough to stand on its own. Just a few more brief examples here. Hawkeye is a bow-focused range fighter just like Hanzo. The Winter Soldier is a heavy-hitting revolver-focused DPS like Cassidy. The Hulk has the same sort of tanky eject system as D.Va. Groot creates large walls out of thin air just like May. The Punisher uses a generic assault rifle like Soldier 76, and probably one of the most uninspired of them all, Black Widow functions as the game's sniper, just like Widowmaker does in Overwatch. Now, all that being said, Marvel Rivals doesn't necessarily take everything from Overwatch. For one, Marvel Rivals is not a first-person shooter, which drastically impacts how some of these similar characters are played. There's less emphasis on ranged shooting, for example, as at least half of the characters in Marvel Rivals are more melee-centric. The Hulk, for example, doesn't get twin machine guns like D.Va, but it's designed to dive in with heavy-hitting melee attacks. Then you have far more unique characters involved, like Spider-Man, that is somewhat similar to the challenging gameplay of Genji, but with options to swing, run on walls, and shoot out webs instead of shurikens. Another big difference here is Marvel Rivals' hidden focus on combos. Because each character is loaded up with a wide variety of different cooldown abilities and attacks, there's very distinctive combo patterns players can begin to adopt in order to make the most out of each individual fighter. By timing dives, attacks, stuns, and evades, players can get far more out of each hero than a player who's just spamming one attack repeatedly. Overwatch isn't nearly as complex in this regard, with most of its focus being on general movement and combat, mixed with positioning and timing with other teammates. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a very noticeable difference, as it gives Marvel Rivals a much steeper difficulty curve for newcomers. Mix this in with unique features like Marvel Rivals' team-up abilities that encourage specific configurations of teammates to unlock special attacks and buffs, and Marvel Rivals offers a lot more variety with its roster than it would first appear. As for the actual design and quality of these characters, it's difficult to really say one is better looking than the other at first glance. Both games aim for a very stylized approach, with strong silhouettes, bright colors, and minimal texture quality. In fact, upon booting up Overwatch, I was surprised to see just how basic some of the texture work was on certain models, especially Tracer here, whose hair looks so flat that I thought maybe the model hadn't loaded in properly. This is all very much intentional, as every character model shares similar low-res texture maps for surfaces, and it's this kind of basic light interaction that helps keep these details perfectly lit and easily recognizable, regardless of the environment. Marvel Rivals seems to share a bit of this aesthetic, though goes a little bit further, leaning into its comic book roots with very strong black outlines accentuating its various details. The facial models in particular are not nearly as advanced as the higher poly models in Overwatch, though they do have this very unique brushstroke texture instead, that gives each and every character just as distinctive a look and silhouette as those in Overwatch. When it comes to animations, I do feel Marvel Rivals is a step below Overwatch, as the idle animations for characters feel bizarre, with weird hip thrusting and uneven breathing motions for individual skeletal nodes. The faces are also pretty much stuck in place due to the drawn-in facial detail. So, things like eyes, for example, don't look around or blink, giving them a very dated look when compared to those in Overwatch. I'll give Marvel credit though for the level of detail put into the hair and fur rendering, as the hair cards are much more elaborate than those in Overwatch, and look great, especially for characters like Squirrel Girl and Rocket Raccoon. Moving on, let's talk environments. Like with the character models, Marvel Rivals has several environments that feel remarkably familiar to those already featured in Overwatch, with the same general decorative style and vibes despite some more obvious Marvel Comics-related background features. The biggest and most impressive feature unique to Marvel Rivals is its dynamic destruction. Occasionally, players will find that certain walls and map features, usually along the central path, can be fully destroyed with repeat attacks, creating large gaps that can be shot through or even collapsed entirely. It's an impressive feature that completely changes the makeup of certain battles, and can be used strategically in a number of ways. Overwatch features no such destruction. There's several destructible decorative assets in both games. In fact, there may be more of these smaller details in Overwatch, especially in the various spawning rooms. But Marvel Rivals destruction is focused on actual gameplay-oriented details that give it a very unique identity. Like with the character models, the quality of these environments come down to artistic preference as well, as Marvel Rivals' various textured surfaces feel like they were painted with a literal brush, with a lot of the same three-pronged brushstrokes appearing across nearly every surface in the game. I'd argue that Overwatch's environments in general feel more densely populated and are more unique and inviting. This is aided further by Overwatch's vastly superior collection of maps to choose from, that are based on a variety of locations across the planet, including Rio de Janeiro, Greece, South Korea, New York, Hollywood, London, and Egypt, just to name a few. Marvel Rivals, interestingly, has only launched with a handful of locations, many of which are based on the same general areas from Marvel's extensive universe. There are several locations, for example, built around Black Panther and Thor's homeworld of Asgard. There's also a Venom-inspired world that looks like it was ripped straight out of Alien, the headquarters of Hydra, and a futuristic Tokyo based around Spider-Man 2099. Like most of the MCU content lately, a lot of these locations seem to be based around multiverses, with a lot of background lore explained via seasonal cutscenes, pre-match dialogue exchanges, and other fun Easter eggs hidden throughout. And with the release of Season 1 this past weekend, we were given yet another location, battle-hardened New York City, complete with a downed Iron Man mech, and a destroyed Avengers Tower backdrop. Even still, Marvel Rivals has significantly less map variety in its current state, and despite some impressive destruction, and plenty of Easter eggs for die-hard Marvel fans, Overwatch may still have it beat when it comes to general map design, detail, quantity, and overall complexity. As far as the lighting is concerned, Marvel Rivals offers an interesting look at Unreal Engine 5's lumen effects that provides more accurate environmental lighting than the traditional methods used before. There's some gorgeous lit areas throughout Marvel Rivals that are easy to miss as you smash through scores of visual alpha effect clutter in the middle of the field. But when you do get a chance to stop and appreciate it, preferably in an empty match, there's some great global illumination going on here that is vastly improved over these same locations with the lumen setting disabled. However, Overwatch 2's more volumetric heavy lighting design still stands out considerably by comparison, as every map is lit beautifully with very deliberate god rays and bloom effects that help to greatly enhance the look and feel of every location. Marvel Rivals may be accurately lit, but there's not nearly as much of a sense of artistic style to go with it, which feels like it goes against the very deliberate artistic feel of the characters and environments themselves. This is of course highly subjective, and for a highly competitive game like this one, things like excessive bloom and volumetric light can arguably be distracting, especially in a game with so many distracting visual elements. But when shown side by side and we're focusing on just the graphics here, it seems to be one of the key ingredients of Overwatch that helps it stand out so well, even all these years later. In Marvel Rivals' defense, it does sport some superior reflections in most instances, with a mix of cube maps and screen space reflections, along with lumen working in tandem to provide some nice reflective properties on the marble floors and puddles on the streets of Tokyo. The reflections even seem to take into account the dynamic destruction in some instances, which is nice to see, even if the surfaces don't necessarily reflect all of the detail. Next, let's talk about the effects. Like the art style, Marvel Rivals effects aim for a much more simplistic and deliberate comic book direction, with very colorful but basic alphas to help players actively or passively identify what's happening at any given moment. This is not too dissimilar from Overwatch, though those effects seem to use a bit more opacity and feel more complex by comparison. Overwatch also mixes in some blood particles for its impacts, along with fiery explosions and other more mature elements that Marvel Rivals appears to steer away from. There is fire that can be found in the environments, like in these torches, but they seem to use a more old-school animated sprite technique that ties in with the flatter art style of the game. Finally, let's wrap up with a brief sound comparison. Which game do you feel has the superior audio quality and design?
Double heat check confirmed. Well deserved. Justice reigns from above.
I never had kids, but I did have the Avengers. Fantastic. Piece of cake.
Double KO.
Enemies on approach. Powering up. Bombs away.
Double KO.
There's another one down.
Heat check. Affirmative. That one's confirmed.
Double kill.
Down and out.
Double KO.
Smoke screen.
That's 3. Wow, 4 in a row.
I'm really feeling the heat.
But the war never ends. Nothing personal.
Double KO.
Come back here.
That's 3. Wow, 4 in a row.
One.
Go on then. Bye. Look at me go. Big time.
Genuine certified Star-Lord. and you're looking at it. Oh boy, here they come! Oh, did you see that?
Double KO! That's 3!
Forged in the dragon's breath.
Double
I am too good at this.
Double KO! Double KO!
Another one for the good guy. Nowhere to hide.
That's 3!
And that wraps up this episode of Direct Comparison. Overall, Overwatch 2 is technically a more impressive looking title than its new Marvel-based rival. But Marvel Rivals does offer some stiff competition regardless, with an impressive starting roster, more complex gameplay systems, and the benefit of significantly more popular characters to pull from. Its use of Unreal Engine 5's Lumen effects are also a nice touch, as are the semi-destructible environments, though this latter feature is extremely inconsistent and not telegraphed well in the art to indicate to the player what can or can't be destroyed, requiring a lot of trial and error. Still, I've been having a lot of fun playing through Marvel Rivals, learning the ins and outs of various characters. There's a lot of complexity here that can be overwhelming at first, especially when compared to the far more accessible Overwatch gameplay. But considering their willingness to listen to the player base and an already strong Season 1 release with the introduction of characters from Fantastic Four, it's clear Marvel Rivals has a lot of momentum going forward that will put Blizzard's popular hero shooter on notice. But what do you guys think? Are you enjoying Marvel Rivals? Or do you still prefer Overwatch? Let me know in the comments section. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this posted every week.